Audio Jungle.
That we've been under a central banking system starting all the way back to 1913. And in 1971, which we discussed many times before, we were taken off the gold standard. Now, this wasn't because of gold speculators. It wasn't because, there were investors out there that were trying to manipulate the gold price. It was about countries who wanted their gold back. And the Fed, the United States at the time, Deep State, didn't want to give the gold back, most likely because they leased it out or it was gone. And they were moving the entire economic system to a petrodollar system at this time. And back then, countries realized what was happening because the Fed printed a lot more currency, the government borrowed that currency, and debt was being run up. Countries realized this and said, okay, wait a minute. We gave you a certain amount of gold, and you weren't allowed to print more currency than there was gold. And this is the turning point. This is when the countries realized something was wrong. And what the central bankers did was they closed the gold window where countries were no longer allowed to repatriate their gold. At the same time, and this was in the planning stage for a very long time, they were planning to move us off the gold stage and move us onto the petrodollar system. And this is why they made deals out in the Middle East where militarily we would protect certain countries like Saudi Arabia, Lebanon, Iraq, Libya, as long as they sold the oil using the dollar. This was the agreement. A couple reports ago, we mentioned that Trump made an announcement to Saudi Arabia saying, listen, maybe you should start paying for this protection. Now, this is very interesting because the deal was, going back in time with Henry Kissinger and the central bankers, that the United States, the deep state, would protect these countries. Now Trump is turning this all around, and that is a signal. Every time you hear these little tidbits like the troops are coming home from Syria, we're going to have peace in North Korea, we're going to make a new deal with Iran, Saudi Arabia should pay for their protection. He's letting the world know something is about to happen. And what that really means is that we're going to be doing the opposite of what the central bank deep state has been doing for a very long time. We're going to get into that a little bit more, but let's just go through what is happening out there in the world. Venezuela right now, they officially launched their oil-backed cryptocurrency. This is the El Petro, and they're going to be using this to sell their oil. And this is going to go live November 5th. And this El Petro cryptocurrency, it's going to be backed by oil, natural gas, diamonds, and gold. And we'll have to see how this plays out. Of course, the critics are out there saying that this is going to be a disaster. Cryptocurrencies cannot be used in this fashion. So we're going to watch the whole thing go up in flames. Maybe, maybe not. Because we see China, Russia, many other countries starting to use cryptocurrency. And countries out there will exchange using cryptocurrency. So what this allows Venezuela to do, it allows them to bypass the sanctions. This is a very big thing because that means that countries are figuring, they've always figured out ways on how to get around sanctions by bartering using gold and other means. But this would be an electronic currency system which completely bypasses the dollar. And remember, Russia has been out there saying that countries should bypass the dollar. They should use their national currencies. They should use their own currencies for trade. Russia and China have been doing this. India is doing it now. We see Syria is going to be doing it. We see many of the Middle Eastern countries are going to do it. Africa, the African nations, saying that, listen, maybe we should use the yuan. We don't really need the dollar because we do a lot more trade with China. So this is the beginning stages, and I think a lot of things are going to change. I think this is going to be a huge test, and we'll have to see how this plays out. Here in the United States, we mentioned the retail apocalypse is continuing, and what we're seeing, and we mentioned this, that Mattress Firm, they might declare bankruptcy, and lo and behold, they went under. They have declared bankruptcy. Now, they have liabilities of at least $1 billion and over 50,000 creditors. And they just filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy in Delaware, and they're going to be closing a lot of stores. They have about 3,300 stores, and we're going to see a lot of them close down. And I think this holiday season, they're going to be closing about 700 stores. And this is during the busiest time of the year. And we can see that many other stores are heading down the same exact path. And after this holiday season, I think we're going to see a lot of stores start to close up shop. I know Walmart, Target, they've been out there saying that, oh, it's the tariffs, that's why we're going to have a really bad holiday season. I don't think it has anything to do with the tariffs. I think they already knew that this holiday season was going to be bad, because if you look back at the last couple of holiday seasons, they've been absolutely awful. And they continually try to cover it up with weather, online, and everything else, and now they're using tariffs. So we're going to see the economy continually decline. It's not getting better. Yes, the manipulated numbers like unemployment, where it came down to 3.7%. This is the lowest unemployment since 1969. Remember, this information is manipulated. It's manipulated on purpose. This is part of the plan. It's to make the economy look incredibly strong. Actually, the New York Fed is taking the opposite stance of what Trump and his administration are taking. The New York Fed is saying, listen, no, GDP is not going to be that great. We're starting to see the economy slow. We don't see anything in the 3s or 4s or 5s. We're seeing it around 2%, 2.27%, around that area. Now, I remember going back to the Obama administration, where the Fed was always telling us that GDP was going to be 3.5%, and they had to work the opposite way because it never reached that high. Trump, he manipulated the GDP numbers by $1 trillion. So he has the ability to make GDP look any way he wants. And we can see that the Fed, they're trying to counter this. And of course, why are they trying to counter this? They're countering it because they don't want everyone believing the economy is doing well, because it doesn't fit into their narrative. A strong, incredible economy with 3.7% unemployment, the stock market soaring, everything looking great, all of a sudden collapses. How is this possible under the Fed? It doesn't make sense. And they're trying to counter this any way they possibly can. Remember, inside the Fed or any of these countries or organizations, there's always good guys and bad guys. And I do believe that Powell, who's the head of the Fed, he is working with Trump, and there are other, Fed officials out there that are against what Powell is doing. They don't want to bring down the economy. They want it to come down, but they want it to make it look like Trump brought it down. They don't want to make it look like the Fed brought it down. So they're trying to counter this any way they possibly can. Now, going back to what Trump said about Saudi Arabia, saying maybe they should protect themselves, this is an indicator letting everyone know that he's getting ready to do away with the petrodollar. I mean, we already know that there is way too much debt. The IMF has been warning about this now. We know that the Biz has been warning about this now. Trump and the Patriots, they already know there is way too much debt. When Trump came into office, he was saying the stock market's a bubble, the housing market's a bubble, the debt is way too high. And when he came into office, everything switched around and everyone said, oh, look, he's a liar. This is ridiculous. No, this is part of the plan. He's using the ammunition of the central bank and the deep state against them, because this was their manipulation policy. So he's using it against them. This way they can't call him out on destroying the economy. This is why we see the flip on what the economy is doing. But he understands that the petrodollar is not going to last. And like I said, that's why he has Andrew Jackson hanging on his wall, because he realizes we need to get rid of this system. And think about what he's been doing since he got into office. He got rid of the trade deals. got rid of the globalist trade deals. Actually, he made a remark at the UN saying that the globalist system, it is dead. So he got rid of all of that, and he's been working on contradicting the Fed, where he's saying, oh, I thought Powell was going to be an easy money Fed. I didn't know he was going to be an interest rate Fed. Of course he did. This is part of the plan. Say the opposite of what you want to happen. Just like with Sessions. Oh, he's not doing his job. He's not doing what he wants. What he's doing, he wants the mainstream media and the people out there to say, oh, the Fed, the Fed, the Fed, the Fed. And when the whole thing comes down, the Fed. He's doing the same exact type of strategy that he used on Sessions. This is what he does. He's already telling us, because he made that remark to Saudi Arabia, that the petrodollar is done. Saudi Arabia is going to have to protect itself. The other countries he's really not concerned about, because once the people take back their countries, they're going to be selling the oil using whatever currency or whatever system they want. Most likely it will not be the dollar. So Trump has just warned everyone right now that the petrodollar, its days are numbered. What does this tell us? This tells us that we're heading towards this great transition. This transition into a new system, out of the central banking system, which was established back in 1913, then again in 1947, then again in 1971. Now we're coming out of this completely, and we're going to do away with this. This is why the IMF, the BIS, this is why they're so nervous and afraid, and they're continually out there screaming, resist all of this. And we know that there's nothing to resist because it's going to be done. The system is going to be ripped apart, and I should say the central bank system is going to be ripped apart and dismantled, just like the globalist trade deals, just like the globalist system. It's all coming apart, and it's happening very, very quickly, and it's going to accelerate as we move forward.